Hello.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are liking the market's doing better.
I'm liking the market's doing better.
9 straight days in a row, although today's down.
Of course. Well, we couldn't go too crazy.
Yeah. But 9 days in a row is pretty good.
That's excellent for the markets.
Yeah. And I think it went up 5% last week on the Dow and the S&P in 1 week.
Yep.
And this week so far has been another big up week. Not big, but a couple percent.
It's good to see after the year we've had.
Yeah. I mean, it was really great through August. And then, the market, the Dow and the S&P went down about 10% from August till early November.
Yeah.
And I got to brag about our clients, right?
Totally.
Because, this is a time when advisors are having a hard time usually with their clients because they're upset. Why are we going down?
10% decline over the course of a couple of months is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's scary, But how many calls did we get?
0.
No calls. Not a single call.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that say about
worried calls?
Worried calls. Yeah, we got calls, but not about worry about the market.
It says our clients are, sophisticated and educated investors who know to stay the course.
Yep.
And they were rewarded this week for doing that.
Yeah, 5% in a week. Yeah.
I think this also speaks to how we always talk about the market recovers quickly. If you miss 1 or 2 days in the market, you really harm your returns over the long term.
Yep.
We have some fun data that we should do on another show for that one. But, if you had sold out thinking you were going to avoid this loss, you missed the 5% run up this week. And it happens just like that.
And you could never get that back.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I have to say, I mean, it's a testament to our clients for sure, but it also is a testament. I have to take a little bit of, I take a little bit of pride in the fact that they
toot your horn,
they
do
get
it.
it because we taught them in many cases. We taught them how to look at the markets and understand them. And so they just, we had people, we've had people, we can see like how many times people go on there and look at their account statements and stuff online. We had some people that were looking at them like, 4 times a day, 150 times a month. We're like, oh my gosh, this person is really, really worried. That same person now never looks at it. So they get it. And it's like, wow, just think about the empowerment we're giving these people, to be able to live their lives and not sweat, the day-to-day fluctuations of the stock market, which, which is counter to the whole press, which they want you to look at every moment change.
Right.
So I feel really happy about that. It's one of the best things about being an advisor is when you can really empower people to live a good life.
I agree.
Yeah. So welcome to A Place of Possibility. We are happy to have you here with us. I am Richard Del Monte.
I'm Angela Wright.
And what are we talking about today, boss woman?
So today we are talking about elder abuse. It's a hard topic to discuss, and I want to just put out a content warning here. Some of the things that we are going to discuss are going to be really hard to hear today. So just kind of be aware of that. Also, as always, this material is for educational purposes only. You should talk to your advisor before ever implementing any of our ideas, and past performance is never a guarantee of future results. Here we go.
You should have done that really fast.
Okay, well, I'm working on my auctioneer voice. Sorry. As an Italian, I can go pretty fast, but
sure you can.
I have heard feedback that people appreciate when we slow it down on the podcast. So,
okay.
All right. So with all of that out of the way, with an aging population, elder abuse is becoming more common. It is super important that we talk about it. Maybe you're listening to this podcast because you are a senior and you're on your own and you need to know how to protect yourself. Or maybe you are the child of somebody who's about to go into an assisted living facility or who's getting nursing care at home, and you want to know, what you should be looking out for, what your resources are, and just, really how to protect them.
Right.
So, we want to help you understand the different types of elder abuse, the signs, like how do you know when this is happening if you're not with mom at the assisted living facility, how to put the proper protections in place to protect yourself and your loved ones, and what to do if you suspect somebody is experiencing abuse.
Yep. So there are 7 types of elder abuse, believe it or not. Only 7, I guess. When you look at them, you're like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. The first one is neglect. And this is basically the willful deprivation of assistance that they need to live, so it'd be things like withholding medication, medical care, shelter, food, therapeutic devices, their hearing aids, their eyeglasses, wheelchairs, other physical assistance. And that by doing that, you expose them to harm. That's neglect. Then there's physical abuse, which we kind of know, right? And then those can be very ugly, burning, and all those kind of things. The abandonment. Sexual abuse is number 3, which I asked you about this before. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
But you said
it happens often to women in doctor offices. Yes, go with mom to her OB appointments. It happens. Big lawsuit in LA. I mean, right now, there's just a huge settlement in Los Angeles
for senior women.
I don't know. Lots of women in the case, like hundreds of women.
This was the UCLA.
Yes.
Well, that was all the college girls, wasn't it? And stuff.
It happens.
But I didn't know it was a thing with seniors. But
yes, it is.
I'm glad to know that.
Ageist.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Number 4 is abandonment. And this is, basically denial of food or health related services based on inadequate caregiver knowledge or the infirmity of the caregiver. They're not capable of taking care of you, or, which just drives me crazy, disputing the value of prescribed services. Like the doctor says, you got to get him a motorized wheelchair. No, we're not going to pay for that. It's too much money. Oh. And interestingly, the California code, I was going to say the vehicle code, the family code requires children who are capable, who have the ability to do this, to care for their adult parents, to provide the needed things that they have to be able to sustain them. It's the law. You have to provide for them. You can't just let them sit in their house and be poor and not get the care they need. Number 5 is emotional or psychological abuse. So this often consists of things like verbal or nonverbal infliction of mental or emotional anguish. It includes things like intimidation, yelling, threats of harm, etc., like that, coercion, humiliation, ridicule, leaving them isolated or causing them to be isolated, locked in their bedroom, or not having phones or anything, withholding emotional support, or any kind of a pattern of oppressive, dominating behavior that's used to steer the person's thoughts, feelings, or actions. Number 6 is financial abuse. This is things like fraud. We're going to go into that a little bit more in a little more detail. But it includes things like neighbors and caregivers, professionals, even family or friends who take money without permission, or fail to repay debts, or charge too much for their services, or just don't do what they were paid to do by the senior. And also the 7th one is self-neglect. The people are just not interested or able to care for themselves. And so most of these forms of abuse, believe it or not, happen in the victim's own home.
Yeah. And in fact, I have some more interesting, facts for you, and just, to help you understand the reality of this. 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 60 will experience one of those forms of abuse. It's usually committed by a family member or a trusted caregiver in a nursing home or a doctor. Psychological abuse is the most common. Financial abuse is the most reported. And that makes sense, right? It's a lot easier for somebody to come and say, hey, someone stole from me, than to say, hey, I think this person's messing with me, or this person's hitting me or something. It's hard to report. It's why a lot of rape goes unreported. It's difficult.
Why did we choose this topic anyway?
Because we have to have these hard conversations. But people need to know how to prepare themselves. True. I hate talking about this. I hate that it happens.
I had the experience, with my father, which I'll share in a minute. Yeah. So it does happen for sure. Of course. Yeah. Gosh. Absolutely. Yeah.
So why does this happen? I mean, nice.
What is wrong with you people?
It happens because, our elderly population, on the physical side, we lose our strength, we lose our dexterity. We're less able to fight back against physical abuse and psychological abuse. Yeah. We become confused. We lose our cognitive ability. So sometimes we don't know, wait, did he touch me inappropriately or not? Maybe I did. Maybe I was being a pain in the butt to my caregiver, and that's why they yelled at me. All along with that, because of the perception of cognitive decline, elderly people are often perceived as confused even when they're not. So often abuse gets reported and ignored. because mom's confused that no way mom's doctor touched her that way. Or, you know, she's saying the people in the home are being evil to her. She's just being dramatic. She has dementia. She's dramatic, you know? So I would encourage everybody to listen and look for evidence when this comes up. You know, many elderly people have significant financial resources. They save their whole lives and they're sitting on a big pot of money. And a lot of people look at that and say, well, you're not going to need it. I need it. And they
you owe it to me or whatever.
Right. You know, just overall, all of these things come together. You are less likely to be able to care for yourself. And the financial abuse is portrayed vividly in this movie called I Care a Lot. If you want to see what this looks like in action, it's a film about a financial conservator and the way that she abuses her wards. It's hard to watch, actually, but it was a really well done movie. And you can see this in action. It happens all the time.
I'll have to watch it, but I didn't want to.
Sorry.
It didn't feel like it was entertainment to me, you know?
It's not.
Okay. So how do you recognize the signs? What are the signs of physical abuse, elder abuse? These would be things like including, you know, neglect and mistreatment. So there'd be bruises, pressure marks, broken bones, abrasions, and burns on their skin, uncombed or matted hair, unkempt or dirty appearance, untreated medical conditions that they may have, malnourishment, dehydration, foul odor, scratches, blisters, lacerations, or pinch marks, unexplained bruises or welts, burns caused by scalding water, cigarettes, or ropes. Unexplained injuries. How'd you get that? I don't know. Or development or worsening of bed sores, things like that.
Yeah. And it's especially important to pay attention to these things if your loved one is living in a facility away from you, right? When you're over there, you know, peek under the robe, so to speak, like what's
going on. Roll them over
on.
Once in a while, see what's happening. You know?
And so I think, what are the signs of emotional and psychological abuse? I think they're a lot harder in seniors to recognize because they appear, you know, confused and I forgot or whatever. But, you know, it increased fear and anxiety, isolation and like intentionally isolating themselves, unusual changes in their sleep patterns, disinterest in normal activities, maybe some helplessness or some anger, like emotions you haven't seen popping up before, being more secretive all of a sudden, confusion, forgetfulness, hesitating to talk freely, especially if the caregiver is in the room. You can kind of, are they normal? Are they the same when that person's in the room or not? Change in eating habits. And so this is really hard, right? Because we may just be looking at cognitive decline. We may just be looking at depression. We may just be looking at, we changed environments and they don't like it. You know, these are especially hard to recognize, but even more important.
Yep. Let's talk about financial abuse now. What are the signs of financial elder abuse? So first thing is, you know, unusual activity in their checking accounts or their bank accounts or their investment accounts, including large, frequent, or unexplained withdrawals. ATM withdrawals by someone who's never used their ATM before. You know, that's a dead giveaway. Signatures on checks or other documents that do not resemble the senior's signature, or pre-signed blank checks. That's a good one. Checks or other documents signed when the elder or dependent adult cannot write or understand what she is signing. That's kind of an automatic, right? And then lack of personal amenities. So they don't have any clothes or they don't have any grooming items because the money's being siphoned off by somebody else. Having a lot of unpaid bills when someone has been designated to pay those bills, or the person themselves is not able to do it. Changes in spending patterns that they have, such as buying items they don't need and they can't afford or they can't use. The appearance of a stranger who develops a new close relationship with them and offers to manage their money for them.
The neighbor comes on
Such
the scene
a nice friend.
all of a sudden. We've seen this happen
All
to
the time.
a client, a neighbor. He was on his own and in fact asked if one of our advisors could be his beneficiary. That's how on his own he really was. And suddenly a neighbor came on the scene. She's taking care of me. I changed up all the estate planning documents very suddenly. And that is an ongoing court battle to this day.
Because he changed everything. So they're the beneficiary, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
and, you know, we see this happen often, like as the advisors, we are the first people who recognize this often. And there was a few years back, we had a fellow who really didn't, with his spending activity was very minimal, very frugal guy. You know, all of a sudden he was calling us more regular. I need $20,000 to fix my pool. I didn't even know you had a pool. Okay. You know, now I got to do the driveway. I need another 20,000. And it was like, it got to like $100,000. And
within like 3 months. Right?
Yeah. And we thought, this is really odd because this fellow is in his 80s. He's probably not even using the pool. Like, what is going on here?
And he hasn't spent that kind of money before.
Right. And the sad part about this is that he was single, and privacy laws prevent us from reaching out to anybody on his behalf. Like, we couldn't just call a child or do anything
without his permission.
Right. And so what we did was go over there to his house, and we went over for a visit basically. And we discovered a moldy pool, a derelict driveway. Basically, this man's living in squalor. And it became very obvious that none of that money went to fixing up the house. And in this case, you know, we just said, hey, listen, we've cut you these checks and none of this money got spent. Like, do you see that? Oh my gosh, yes, I do. And, you know, we helped him put better controls in place for himself. And luckily, you know, it didn't go any further in that case. But
we learned something from that experience because we found out we couldn't talk to the guy's kids. We actually, and our lawyer said, do not call the kids. Yeah. That is a violation of the law. You know, even though you know it's the right thing to do, don't do it. You can't do it. So we changed our practices. Now we have everybody sign a waiver, privacy waiver that lets us do that.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the provision of services that are not needed or necessary, and telemarketing fraud, which we're going to cover in a little more detail, but we know what that is, right? People on the phone trying to rip you off. I will say that my father was the victim of financial abuse as well. And he had a line of credit with a checkbook that was in like a drawer in a box. And so he never used it, but all of a sudden his girlfriend that was living with him at the time, he was in his early 80s. We didn't know it, but she was writing checks and signing his name, and they were going through for herself. And so she basically stole over a period of about 2 years, about $80,000.
Oh my gosh.
He had no idea.
Put him in debt while she was doing it.
Yeah, she line of credit. He had no idea. And so she was out there getting the mail at the mailbox before, you know, so he didn't get to see it. She was always home. She got the mail. And so she hid the statements from him. He never knew that it happened. So when I got wind of it, I talked to him, and he said, I don't want to do anything. You know, I love her and everything. And he was afraid, he was coerced into, he was going to lose her companionship. Who wants a woman like that?
Financial and psychological abuse in this case.
So I called, the county authorities, which we'll talk about, Adult Protective Services. And they called my dad, and my dad said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She had permission to write those checks. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do anything, but I did get even with her because after he died, I made her pay every dime back.
Good.
I got it back. Yeah, absolutely. No way.
Yeah.
No way she's going to get away with that. It was horrible. Yeah.
Ugh, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Terrible.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, you know, the other scams, you want to run through like
scams.
some of the fun scams people are getting these days.
So some of the scams that happen to people include identity theft, where people can call you or somehow or another they get a hold of some of your private information, your social security number, your date of birth, whatever, account numbers, door-to-door home improvement scams. Hey, I noticed you need your yards mowed or your gutters cleaned out. If you give me $50 or $100, we'll do that. And they never show up again. Predatory lending, like people just charging seniors a lot of money for a loan they need to get. Obituary fraud. They see that your spouse died and then they start preying on you and taking advantage of you because they think you're alone. Magazine subscription. Basically, someone sends you a bunch of magazines and they call you up and say, hey, you haven't paid for your subscription. You know, you owe us this money. People will forget. Sweepstakes.
Good old Publishers
Clearinghouse. We got a sweepstakes for you.
They're not a fraud.
Yeah, we just need a few $1,000s and you're going to win. Charitable donations. These are actually legitimate, entities a lot of times, but they know they can get these people, so they keep calling and getting money from them, and they get more than they would normally get. Political people do that too for donations. Investment scams, we know about that. There's all kind of, I got a good deal for you, and that's a Ponzi scheme kind of thing. Grandparent scam. Your grandchild, you get a phone call. Grandma, I'm being held hostage. You got to give $10,000 to the kidnappers, and they go do it. We've seen it happen.
Yep.
We've seen it happen.
Yep.
Helpful nephew scams, where the helpful nephew comes around, he's really helpful to you, and then he ends up, can you loan me $50, $100? And then he figures they won't remember, doesn't pay him back. Sweetheart scam, you would know what that is. Oh, I'd love to be with you.
That.
Oh, yeah. And then the yes scam, which is really interesting. They call you on the phone. They just try to get you to say the word yes, and then they're recording it, and they take that and put it into a thing where it says, do you get permission for us to charge your credit card? Yes. I mean,
yeah. And this is only going to get worse because now you've got, the AI generated images and voice things that they can do are wild. And so for that reason, we would advise never talk to spam callers. There was a while where it was fun to mess with them. They could be recording your voice. Just hang up, or my phone says spam risk, and it's usually right when it says that. So just wait for the voicemail and call them back.
Get rid of them.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of your rights. What do you have the right to? Well, if you are living in a residential care facility, your rights are very well documented. There are many, many organizations, governmental organizations, and volunteer organizations that are out there to protect seniors. It's serious. So, first of all, you have the right to privacy and confidentiality. You have the right to be taken care of by your children, as we discussed, by government care facilities, and the right to receive medical care. You have the right to fair treatment, no age discrimination. You have the right to visits from your family, your friends, your doctors, and anyone you choose to have visit you.
That happened after COVID.
Yes.
People were locked up and they couldn't be visited.
And what was the outcome of that?
That's illegal now.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to let them visit.
It's devastating to your psyche.
Yeah.
And so, if you suspect there's a violation or something going on, and either you or a parent or grandparent is in a residential care facility, every county has a long-term care ombudsman. And we're going to put this in the show notes for you, so you just click and get where you need to go. But that ombudsman is a volunteer organization, and they are there. You tell the story, and they will help put you in touch with the people that you need to talk to and point you in the right direction. They may help you make a report with the California Department of Public Health Center for Healthcare Quality. CHCQ, that is where violations are reported in long-term care facilities. And then there are elder law attorneys. The Google search term is elder law attorney or elder care attorney. Will get you to a person who's well-versed in these laws.
Yep.
So how do you prepare, prevent this from happening? How do you just not get to the point where you're calling the ombudsman? Talking first about protecting yourself, and then we'll talk about protecting your wealth. So on your physical self, what can you do? Number one, take care of your health. Obviously, there are diseases and cognitive declines that you can't prevent, but to the degree you can, keep your diet, keep your exercise, seek professional help if you're struggling with drugs or alcohol or depression. I can't tell you the number of 85-year-olds I know who are sitting on their couch waiting to die. Why should I quit smoking? I'm going to die soon anyway. That puts
or drinking.
Yes, but that puts you and your money at risk. You could live another 20 years and need significant medical care if you're unhealthy, and it really puts you at risk. So I encourage you to seek help if you need it. You can attend support groups for yourself or for spouses. And especially attending groups around domestic violence, and that includes health or care facilities as well. Learning more about what we talked about, what to look for, and the signs and the prevention. Stay active in your communities. Stay connected with your friends, with your family. This decreases your social isolation. And we know, of course, from psychological studies, having a community is really important to your longevity and your happiness. But it also prevents abuse because there are people around watching what's going on with you. If you don't have a natural community or you're far from your family, there are so many resources out there for you. So starting with my city puts out a Pleasant Hill Spotlight, and I can see all of the activities for seniors. There's so much going on all the time. You've got La Miranda Village, which is an amazing volunteer organization for seniors in the area. They put on events, they drive you places. It's really cool. meetup.com if you're online, or Facebook. There's just a million and two things that you could be doing. And then, of course, protecting yourself involves understanding your rights, which we just reviewed. If you're unable to take care of yourself, you're just a sitting duck for abusers.
Indeed.
Yeah,
no question. All right. So how do you protect your wealth? So the first thing you need to do is plan for your own future. Look, your future, if you're lucky, means you're going to get older and you're going to become, you're going to lose abilities. So you got to plan for that. Don't pretend like it's never going to happen. So you need to have some legal documents in place. You need to have a living trust. You need to have a will. You need to have a power of attorney, 2 powers of attorney. One of them is a durable power of attorney that lets the person who has the power manage your financial affairs if you become unable to do it. And also a power of attorney for healthcare, also called living wills. There's various names for those. But you're gonna give someone the power to make decisions for you regarding your health when you can't do it. These don't have to be the same person either, right?
Important distinction.
Probably wouldn't be in many ways. You might have one kid that's really good with money, and the other one that's really, like a good caregiver, right? So those people, but you need to choose those people wisely, because oh boy,
they run your life.
They run your life, and you won't be able to stop them at some point. And so choose those and seek independent advice from someone you trust before you sign any documents. Don't ever get that someone in your family go, Dad and Mom, sign this document. It's a permission slip for, me to go to, something, but it's actually your will, or they changed the will or something, or an amendment to your trust.
And if you're out, with an attorney doing your own estate plan and you don't have someone in your world that you trust, that's common too, go hire another attorney to review it with you. Just $250, $500, go over it. It's worth the money.
Preferably an elder care attorney that gets the joke, knows what's happening. Okay. So then how do you protect again, we're talking about protecting your wealth. Shred your documents.
My gosh.
Old documents that you have that you don't need, that are not current, shred them so no one can get their hands on them. Old account statements. Preferably you would get these things by email and not even in your mailbox, because there's so many ways to get ripped off that way.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have a good story for this. The last firm that I worked at, a fellow had his Charles Schwab account statements stolen from his mailbox. They used that statement to call the financial advisor, who was my firm. A person, an ops person on my team he said, I want to withdraw, $150,000 from my account, but I need to send it to this place in South Africa for this. I forget what the reason. So the rep believed this person, draw up the forms, send it out. They sent it back. Rep sends it to Schwab for processing. And it was Schwab, thank goodness, who says, wait, the signature doesn't match. And they got caught. That all came though, because he plunked a statement. Those statements have your name, your account number, with a custodian,
your address,
every asset. It's almost everything that they need to get through some of the security questions. Now, Schwab has put some other stuff in place lately, to protect you, but still, mail is actually really dangerous. Online is less dangerous.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. So again, on that topic, mail your own letters and get your own mail out of the mailbox if you can.
Don't be Richard's dad.
Don't be my dad. Right. Exactly. Never, ever, ever give any personal information over the phone. Social, date of birth, account numbers, anything like that. No legitimate company is ever going to call you and ask you for your password. That's fraud.
And if they do, hang up, Google the phone number of the company and call them back, and then do your business.
And you know who you're talking to. Use direct deposit for all checks, or you can scan the check on your phone and deposit it. Stay current with technology. Use your cell phone. Use it for getting on the internet and social media and things like that. Continue to stay current with how the technology is evolving, because otherwise you're out of the game and someone's going to have to do it for you, and you're putting yourself at risk. Review your estate planning documents periodically. It's really important to make sure they're still what you want, and avoiding telemarketing fraud. I mean, that's, the phone calls, all that stuff, they're calling and offering you things. Sometimes they can really trick you.
Yeah.
And you got to be really careful about that. Computer fraud is another one.
Yeah.
They get on, and they.
Yeah. This happened to a client. We had a lot of stories about this.
We do. Yeah.
So clients on their Mac computer, all of a sudden they get this pop-up. This is the Genius Bar. There's a virus. The hacker is trying to take all your money. We're going to have to work really hard to undo this. It's going to cost $10,000. And the client's looking at their assets going, okay, yeah, I'll pay $10,000 to secure all my assets.
What choice do I
Elderly
have?
person in their 80s. So they go like get a cashier's check or something. Same day, like within the hour, they've done something with this, just sent it off somehow, and think their computer's going to get fixed. Well, then the people realize they got this guy on the hook and they say, you know what? It's going to be another 10,000 now. And at this point, he calls us and he says, well, I need the money from my Schwab account because I don't have it in my checking. And I say, hold up. We're paying $20,000 to secure a $2,000 laptop. I started asking questions and we realized that he's being scammed. And unfortunately, he did lose that first $10,000. We quickly, rebooted his computer and we did not send the rest of the money. But this happens.
Yeah. Sometimes you get those screens that pop up, it takes the whole screen and look like your computer is locked. You're being frozen or you got to give us money. Just turn your computer off and restart it. And that thing will go away most often.
Yep.
It happened to me last week. I just rebooted it. And we have that story about our client that a lot of these people get into your email because you have like an easy email, a password. So they get into your email and they start reading all your emails and they get to see what your patterns are. And we had one situation where they got into an elderly client's email and they got her account numbers with us. They learned that she was interacting with us on email. They got to Schwab. They changed the mailing address to their address. They got fake checks made up. They learned how to sign her signature somehow. And they changed the ACH to their bank. And unbeknownst to her, no knowledge, no information to her. And then they wrote to us and said, hey, can you send us $70,000, to this bank?
And the email comes from our client.
Yeah. And they're saying, by the way, how's your kids? Oh, I know you got married recently and all this, like all friendly chit chat that you would totally think it was them. But luckily we have a practice in our firm of calling. We do a verbal confirmation before any money goes out. So we called her and we said, when do you want the 70,000? She says, what are you talking about? She didn't authorize it.
Stomach drops.
So it can happen.
Yeah.
Just so it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yep. Be really careful.
So luckily, there are criminal penalties for people who commit this kind of abuse. In my opinion, they are not stringent enough. I'm going to tell you what they are.
That's very true.
It's ridiculous, actually. So when an individual knows that an elderly person is in a dangerous or unhealthy situation and they don't stop it, they're criminally negligent and they face a misdemeanor charge, $2,000 in fines and a year in county jail. That's when this is where kids can get in trouble, right? Yeah. If you steal or embezzle from a senior, your fines are $2,000 plus jail time. That's it.
Plus you have to pay it back.
Yeah. Misdemeanor elder abuse can be punished by up to a year in jail and a $6,000 fine as well as some restitution. Felony elder abuse in California, wait for these, can be punished by up to 4 years in prison and 7 additional years if the victim suffered great bodily harm.
Only 7?
If the abuse causes the victim to die, the abuser faces 5 years in prison if the victim was under 70, 8 years if the victim was over 70.
That should be reversed. It should
be life, in my opinion. Yeah. But this is also neglect, right? A caregiver gives the wrong amount of medicine. Okay. And then there's significantly elevated civil charges that can happen here. And that's where people really,
lawsuits
get made whole and stuff. So,
right.
There are penalties. I don't think they're serious enough. We've talked a little bit about where to get help if you're in a long-term care facility. If you're at home, if you suspect something, the girlfriend is stealing, if dad just isn't taking care of himself, if there's a caregiver in the home doing something, that's where you're going to go to your county adult protective services office. And you're going to file a complaint and they're going to go do a well check or call the senior.
That's their job. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Well, thank you so much for
I'm glad we got through this one.
Sticking with us on that one. It is so hard to talk about this because for ethical people who wouldn't perpetrate it, it just
hard to imagine.
It's sickening, but now you're informed and you know what to do and you'll be better able to help yourself or your mom and your dad if something happens to them. So all the details that we shared today will be in the show notes and the guide. So you have easy access to the resources that you need. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you don't miss a show. If you'd like to reach out to us, you have a topic idea or a question, please write to us at info@aplaceofpossibility.com. If you'd like to schedule an appointment to discuss your own financial situation, you can access our calendars from the link in the show notes or on your screen. And we are still offering a free copy of The Investment Answer, a fantastic primer on evidence-based investing. It's how we manage portfolios, and it's really easy to read. So we encourage you to get educated on that. Rich, take us home.
That's it for this show. Thank you very much for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. And until then, remember, you're invested and so are we. Take care.
Bye, everyone.